dads who watch sports for dads who watch sports, or just dads in general. Here are the dads with a plan for every hashtag dad life and sports fan. Matt Kirk, Kyle Castles, and Michael Draper.
And here we are. We are the dads watching sports. Not sure what happened with that little glitch there, but guys, it is Sunday, September the 12th, 2021 is episode 81. Hard to believe. I feel like I say this almost every single week. We're 81 episodes in. We started this thing back when we still had sports early on in 2020, and then the world shut down, and we had to get very creative, and we have made it thus far, and here we are. A year and a half later, almost to the day. I feel like it was maybe like around March 12th or 13th where the world shut down in terms of from a COVID standpoint, sports standpoint, Kyle. But we have fought the good fight, and we are finishing going forward with Dads Watching Sports. I'm Michael Draper. He's Kyle Castles and Matt Kirk. We've got a lot of awesome things to talk about. We've got a lot of college football. It was a big weekend in college football. You see Matt has already changed his name on here to Woo Pig Suey. Big weekend for the Hogs. Matt, I will tell you, so Kyle and I got together last night and watched some football, and I told Kyle, I said, when you guys hired Sam Pittman, there was not an ounce of me that thought that this was going to be the guy that could, potentially get y'all kind of turned around and back in the right direction. I know we're jumping way off topic and we've got a guest to bring on in a second, but what was your initial reaction to the hire of Sam Pittman? And did you even think that this would happen so quickly?
I knew that the players really liked Sam whenever he was at Arkansas, but I just thought, oh my gosh, we're going to pull another LSU and we're going to hire Ed Orgeron. And, you can see what's going on with LSU now. But I just thought, oh, man, this is going to be bad. And then I just thought, well, I guess we'll see who we can hire in 2 more years. But I don't think Mr. Pittman's going anywhere.
Yeah, he's done a great job. And I know we like to give you a hard time about the Hogs, but I'm happy for you guys. I know it's been a long couple of years. And so I'm happy. And anytime you can knock off Texas and beat them the way y'all did and welcome them to what's going to be their reality over the next couple of years was pretty great. TJ jumps in and says, hello,
boys. We beat
boys.
them into submission.
That's right.
Yeah.
TJ jumps in and says, hello, boys. TJ's Aggies squeaked out a very narrow win at Colorado over in Denver. So, well, guys, let's move forward. We've got a great guest this week. So, each week we're trying to highlight a specific game of the weekend, and there's none bigger this upcoming weekend. There's actually not a lot of great games at all, but there's a doozy in the SEC, a battle between two just national powers. You've got the Gators hosting the Tide in what could be just a tremendous matchup. And so we've got Allan Taylor who's joining us. And Allan, he covered the Big 12 for some time, but now covers the Florida Gators for The Athletic. Allan, how are you doing? And welcome to Dad's Watching Sports.
Doing well, man. Hearing you guys talk about how bad COVID messed up everything last year, it seems like it didn't even happen. It seems like it was all a video game. And so I'm glad to be back in places where fans are in the stands and people are enjoying life again.
Yeah, and I know I didn't include this on some of the questions you were asking, but you're someone who covers college sports for a living. What was that like last year with no fans and I imagine probably not much travel involved, if any at all? But what was that like?
Well, actually, I went to every game except the Cotton Bowl. But
okay.
To your point, you had to ask yourself why. I mean, you're sitting in the stadium, watching the game, then post game, you're back on your computer again, same as the guys who didn't travel. Maybe you saw something in pregame that gave you a news tip for about 35 or 40 minutes, but it wasn't the way it needs to be done. You weren't having conversations with guys. You weren't meeting sources like you normally would. So it puts everybody on sort of a blasé, superficial sort of level, and it was tougher to do that job. We're getting back to it a little bit this year, but I'm just grateful that stadiums are open again and people are having fun, because I think it's part of the culture and it's important to people, not just for escapism, but their granddads and their grandmothers all went to these games generations back, and I don't know that some people across the country appreciate what college football means to certain families.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think, at least for the three of us, we all have really for our entire lives been kind of an SEC country where, say what you may about other conferences, but it's just kind of up a notch. And that's really the way it is. I mean, it's a generational thing where you go every Saturday and you tailgate for your team. And I would imagine taking that away from fans was pretty tough last year and was odd covering it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mentioned, you cover the Gators for the Athletic. Florida's, they've looked fine. They've looked good in their first couple of games. Haven't looked great, but looked good. They've got a little bit of maybe of a quarterback controversy going on. But if you kind of look at the program as a whole and maybe what either fans are saying or just kind of what you're hearing and covering, then what's the mood down in Gainesville right now? They're 2-0, but it hasn't been just an outstanding performance, I guess, either week.
No, they're just sort of checking boxes and meeting expectations so far. They've won 2 games comfortably, but they didn't just obliterate either team, right? I mean, if you're into the gambling side of things, they haven't quite covered either week. So, but I think FAU may be a team that wins 6 or 7 games. So maybe they're decent. USF rather is going to struggle. They've lost 14 out of 15. The team they played in Tampa this week. I think everybody's just a little bit nervous. If you hear people talk about the ceiling for this team, it's probably 9 or 10 wins, maybe 11 if everything goes well. The floor 7. So there's really not a lot of fluctuation there. Everybody's looking at Alabama this week. Georgia is always a big game, and then the road trip to LSU. Those are the ones I thought preseason they were probably going to lose. And now, Kentucky looks decent again as they've been under Stoops. And that's a road trip, and you got a road trip to Missouri. So now you're just trying to figure out, are they the second best team in the East? Do they have a shot at Georgia? Are they the third best team in the East if things sort of fall apart? So everybody's just got a toe in the water and trying to, see how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is the top concern going into the Alabama week here?
I think sometimes teams show up against Alabama and they're beaten maybe by their own preparation, or they're beaten just by the aura of them. And that's even teams that play them every year. That's not just the teams that catch them once every decade. Florida played them as well as anybody did last year in the SEC championship game. Really was a one-possession game. So the guys who are still here from that Florida team, which are numerous, aren't fearful. However, the offense isn't humming like it was last year. You don't have a team, I don't think, capable of doing what Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask and even Grimes and those guys were doing. So you're going to have to beat them a different way. And so I think from the fan base side of things, is this going to be Alabama, Miami all over again from 2 weeks ago? Or is this going to be, Dan Mullen pulling out a game plan and the defense doing enough to make it competitive and give Florida a chance? I thought during the offseason this was the perfect time to catch Alabama because Bryce Young was going to be making his first true road start. New coordinator, didn't know what Bill O'Brien was going to bring to the table after Sark left, and all those receivers being changed out, and a couple of offensive linemen too. I mean, there was a lot going on, but they looked really sharp against Miami the first half, and then last week's game against Mercer was always going to be what it is. Saban never beats those teams 100-0. So, we'll still see if the Swamp with 89, 90,000 people in there can rattle Bryce this week.
I can tell you one thing, this past weekend in Texas, you can see or Arkansas, Texas, you can see what a hostile crowd can do to a quarterback. So I definitely hope they can get to him.
Yeah, that was a great experience for you guys over there, man. I tell people when I was in the Big 12, they didn't have an appreciation for the tradition that Arkansas has had in the past. And I would always bring up, like, man, I can't believe they're 2-10 this year or 1-11. That just doesn't seem like Arkansas going back away. So I'm glad to see you guys are getting that thing settled and being competitive again. And everybody loves to beat Texas, man. I mean,
I was so happy.
That's pervasive coast to coast.
Absolutely.
Yes. So you mentioned the possibility that Coach Mullen can put together a game plan to give you a shot against Bama. In your opinion, what does that game plan look like? What is Florida? What are they going to have to do to beat Alabama?
Well, the narrative for the last few years was you have to have a mobile quarterback and you have to go up tempo. That's who gives Saban's defenses trouble. Well, Kyle Trask wasn't mobile worth a darn, really, last year, and they put 46 on them. I think you're going to see Mullen bring up some of the stuff he did at Mississippi State, which they had a couple games against Saban and Starkville that were close. That Bama had to rally and get. I personally think he needs both quarterbacks playing really well next week because Emory knows more about the totality of the offense and can get them in different packages, whereas Anthony Richardson is just flat out balling. I mean, it's a small sample size, but I don't know if there's another quarterback athlete in the country right now who can match him. But he only runs a certain number of packages. I think it's going to take turnovers that the defense is going to have to get. Quite honestly, I don't think whatever Florida does ball control wise will be enough without the defense again really getting to Bryce and Alabama sort of helping them in some situations.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up Mississippi State and what Mullen did there. I'm a Mississippi State fan, and going back to birth basically, and so I hated to see Dan go, but I totally understood. There's a few more resources in Gainesville than in Starkville. And so Mississippi State, we look at him as like he's the greatest football coach we've had at this school. What do Florida fans feel about Dan Mullen, the job he's done so far? Does he where everybody expects? Did people expect more?
Well, he's stabilized the program. If he comes in and does this after Urban Meyer left, I think they'd be a little bit disappointed, right? But a lot of stuff went wrong between Urban Meyer and Dan Mullen. So you're talking about 2 double-digit win seasons, another New Year's Six Bowl last year. I think he surpassed expectations. I also thought they had a really good chance last year to win the SEC and do something special, and they threw away a game against LSU, didn't get it done against Bama, and then really nobody cared. By the time the Cotton Bowl got there, you didn't have any buy-in left. So I think the fan base is sort of appreciative, but they're also ready to take that next step. And it's not all Dan's fault. It's the fact that they haven't won an SEC championship since 2008, and that feels like a lifetime compared to where that program was under Spurrier and Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
So we just touched briefly on the Big 12. What do you think of OU and Texas coming to the SEC?
Man, I tell you what, I did think it would happen. The last few years, I really thought those guys would either wind up in the Pac-12 or, if need be, maybe even the Big Ten, because I think OU could win either league, quite honestly. But the money's there, the temptation is there, and I think OU and Texas saw what SEC schools were doing as far as Texas recruiting goes. And flying that banner, it makes Ole Miss competitive in Texas recruiting when you go in there with the SEC. It really does. And so once Texas and Oklahoma can add that to their already strong brands and get all that money, because OU has a ton of debt as far as keeping up on their facilities. They got great campus, great facilities, everything's good, but not all of it's paid for. So the money matters to those guys. It's going to make the league already the strongest league even that much stronger. And this whole alliance thing between the Pac-12 and Big Ten, they see it's reactionary. It's something that got thought up in a month, and there's nothing binding. I don't see where it's going. I don't think it matters at all unless you're talking about having a vote on something. And who's to say the SEC can't go out and get Conference USA, the Sun Belt, I'm losing the other Mountain West or whatever, and the MAC, and suddenly have a voting block of its own. I mean, I don't think it really matters. But whenever that thing happens and they actually make the move over, whether it's next year or the year after, probably going to go to a 9-game schedule in the SEC, and it's going to be tough, man. If they ever do expand the playoff to 8 or 12 teams, you're looking at half the field.
Yeah.
Potentially be an SEC some years.
So what has been Florida fans and just the kind of the thought around the program about when that happens, and then kind of realignment within the SEC? Like what's the, if you talk to the Florida faithful or anyone associated with the program, like what's the ideal situation that it kind of shakes out in terms of the alignment of, does it stay East and West? Does it move to 4 different divisions, and who's in that? What's the thought around all that?
I think everybody's just trying to figure out who is your rival. Who are your second tier rivals. You're not going to lose the Georgia game. I don't think you want to lose the LSU game because it's too important to the SEC. LSU Florida has been played for something like 20 straight years, and to me, it's grown into a decent little deal. I think Florida Tennessee needs to be preserved if it can be. But
y'all just want that guaranteed win.
That's right.
I know, man. I go back to like being in Chattanooga when those guys were good. We had booked our Rose Bowl tickets for the newspaper when they were playing that little 3-loss or whatever LSU team that Nick Saban was trying to coach up. Yeah. And, it looked like a done deal. And then they blow that game and it doesn't happen. But, a lot of Florida fans remember playing Auburn all those times too. So you're really getting down to what's that number 2 or number 3 rival that you feel like you should play every year. I know Alabama fans say, Mississippi State's 90 miles away. That game should be played, and they're used to being played. But when you got Auburn and you got Tennessee and you got LSU, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be able to keep more than 2 or 3 permanent opponents and still play everybody every couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing that will be interesting for every team is, now that they have, they're looking at that. And then, some teams like a Kentucky, a Georgia with Georgia Tech, a Kentucky with Louisville, a South Carolina with Clemson, they have, their rivals are in other conferences. They're going to keep those games. So they're going to have to replace potentially a, Jacksonville State or Troy or somebody like that with Texas and Oklahoma potentially, or another SEC team. So that for those teams that are kind of on the cusp every year for bowl games, that's a huge, huge deal.
It is. You look at all the times that a team went, 2-6 in the SEC, but got into a bowl game at 6-6, right? Well, now it's going to be a little more difficult to do that. And same way with the Alliance. If they're going to go to playing 12, Power 5 teams to where the Pac-12 and Big Ten and ACC all play each other out of conference, well, that's going to knock those teams out of bowl games too, unless we just decide that 5-7 is good enough, and just to keep football on TV in December, essentially, which is really what it's gone to anyway. But you're right, man. I do think the SEC actually has some leeway, more so than the Alliance, if that's what it's going to be, that they can still play 9 conference games. The Floridas of the world can still play FSU, Georgia, and Georgia Tech can still happen, South Carolina, Clemson, Kentucky, Louisville. But then the other 2 games, maybe you do play the Sun Belt, and get some group of 5 stuff in. And then obviously the Sun Belt's going to be very appreciative, and they'll tag along on whatever vote you want to give them, because they can't schedule a game with the Big Ten or the ACC anymore.
Yep. No, absolutely. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here. Our show is called Dads Watching Sports, and kind of the whole premise behind our show is we love to talk sports, but we are also all dads, and we talk all about dad life and all the fun and joy that kind of comes with that. So tell us just a little bit about your family, and then we'll get into some more kind of dad life stuff.
Really late getting started, man. Was so into work and travel and moving around the country that didn't get married till I was 45, and then we had our first little girl. She'll be 20 months old. That's her right there. She's coming up then, and now we've got number 2 due the day of the Florida-Missouri game on November 20th. So I got to make a decision on whether I even book that ticket or just, ride it out the week of and see what happens. And this one's supposed to be a boy. So
okay,
we'll be actual parents, right? Because I always hear you got to have 2 to consider yourself completely vaccinated or completely parented, however it goes.
Right. Yeah.
2 jabs, 2 shots.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat. So I've got 2. I've got a girl that's older, and then a boy. Matt's the exact same way, and then Kyle's got 3. So yeah, we're all in that same boat. So well, that's fun. Well, congratulations on the boy to be. That's very exciting.
Well, I always heard that you shouldn't mess around if the first one's perfect, and she's been great. She sleeps through the night. She eats. She says thank you. She's great. And so now we got this little fella coming. I think he might be ready to be a disruptor of sorts.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Yep. No doubt about it. Yeah, and they, I think we could probably all attest. Like every kid, like you think, okay, this kid's this way, surely we can do the same thing, and their sibling will be, not even remotely close. They will be completely different. So
we thought the third one was going to be the easy one, the calm one, because like she's not going to have. First off, she's the only girl and the baby, and that may be the problem. But like, you don't have a choice. Like, we have two others that we got to deal with. You're going to force to be calm. She's probably the worst of the three.
I've had friends, and they're really great parents, but they will point to their old one and be like, "She's great," and then they'll point to the young one and say, "That's the one that should have led me to have a vasectomy." But I think the more trouble they cause you, if it's the good kind of trouble, probably the more appreciative you are, because you spend so much time trying to figure them out, and we'll see how number 2 works out, man.
Keep your life interesting for sure. Well, you kind of already alluded to this when you were talking about, when do you book the ticket to go to Missouri? But so as someone who covers college sports and has to travel, I would imagine, quite a bit. How does that work-life balance work out for you? Because that's something that I feel like all of us dads we struggle with, and even just a career where we don't follow a college program every Saturday. But what does that look like, and how have you been able to kind of manage that?
It probably would have been easier had my wife grown up watching college football, but at the time we started dating, she had been to one game, and it was a Tennessee game against some FCS school, 10 years ago. So she didn't get that part of it. Even this is the 5th year we've been together, and I still get a couple of questions about, hey, a friend's having a wedding in Maine next month. Do you want to go? And I just have to laugh and say, if that was even my bye week, I'm not sure that I would spend the one Saturday off, doing that. So poor child's flying to Maine by herself next week. It's difficult, but also really even more so than the Saturdays and the weekends. It's the breaking news. When a commit decides to decommit at 8:00, and suddenly you're talking to people in the program and seeing what that's about. And I know my wife has said a couple of times, I just want to know when you're going to be at work and when you're not going to be at work. And I'm like, well, I wish I knew. I wish I did, because you never know when a coach is going to get a DUI or someone's going to tear an ACL or what. So luckily with the Athletic, it's a little more settled, knock on wood, than it was before, where every football, baseball, basketball thing had to be documented really quickly. Luckily, we have sort of set pieces, and it's a little more of a cadence, 3 or 4 times a week. But you still got to, news breaks, you got to address it.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure. So how do you balance, actually, that's the wrong one. What does leadership mean or look like to you in your role with your family?
I know what I wish it looked like. I wish it looked like Nick Saban, where you set a template and you set a path, and everybody snaps in line and everybody executes 98% of the time, and you look like a genius. Instead, I think I'm more, I don't know, I might be more Les Miles at times, where I'm just hanging on for a prayer at the end and hoping I don't blow the clock or something. That's a bad analogy given what he's gone through lately. I should have picked somebody else, like Doug Barfield or something from the past. It's tough, man. I mean, again, I have this ideal of what I want to do. Always being steady and being a rock and always saying the right thing and comforting people. But, I have a short fuse, and I have frustration with work and a lot of frustration around COVID that has, I think, changed everybody's personalities over the last year to some degree, to where we really have to check ourselves. And so I want to improve. Let's say that I want to do a better job. And now that I'm making a public proclamation of that, maybe I'll hold myself to it.
So you may have already answered this one in some of your other answers, but it's on the list of questions, and I wanted to get my time on the show, so I'm going to ask it anyway.
Always.
Mississippi State, you got to butt in when you get a chance, man.
Exactly. Sports and your family life. It sounds like your wife is not much of a sports fan. Your daughter's, almost 20 months old, and you got a son on the way. So outside of you, is there anything that sports happens in your house, or is it just like you do your job and then family is over here without sports?
Well, I find myself explaining a lot of things. My wife actually, she likes basketball a lot, and she understands it. The football is a little more difficult, and baseball and tennis. I tried to explain tennis scoring this week during the U.S. Open, and I really didn't have a good explanation for her. I don't know why it goes 15, 30, 40 versus 1, 2, 3. And what deuce game is, and add and love and all that kind of stuff. But my two baby sisters, are grew up as Alabama fans, and they're texting me every Saturday. And my whole side of the family, even back to when there were 3 games on TV a year, and the others you had to listen to on radio. Quite honestly, back in the '80s, so that still feels like part of it. We'll see. When I was in West Virginia, my wife went to several games because she did a lot of social media and graphics for our company, and she got to see, how the press box is truly a working place, and that once the game is over, that's when the real work starts. You spend another 4 or 5 hours there. I no longer get those texts about, "Are you going to join us for dinner?" When I'm like, no, I got 2 hours of tape to transcribe and write 3 pieces by midnight. So that helps a little bit, and people at least ask how the game is, and she could tell you that Florida's 2-0 versus 0-2 right now. So I think more of the times we talk about sports, it's more me seeing just some crazy play that even if you don't love sports, you can still appreciate it. I know at Miami last night, you had the cat dangling from the balcony, and someone caught it in an American flag on 9/11. I mean, come on, dude. And one of our guys, left the press box to go write his story on that. And so that's there's always something, man, that makes you enjoy it. And our neighborhood back in West Virginia, huge Mountaineer fans, generation after generation, and she got to see what it was like. I think that was an indoctrination for her that maybe she didn't get earlier in life.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, last question we have for you. And this is something we try to ask all of our guests that come on the show is just, this could be at your retirement party. This could be at a funeral, wherever you want to picture this, but at a time much later in life, and your children are asked to say, okay, let's list 3 things that they would say about Dad. What do you think those 3 things would be?
I don't know, you just want to be, I guess, appreciated and have them understand, the sacrifices that you made. And obviously I had no clue what those were with my dad and my mom until you become a parent, right? I mean, you can say things like, I'm glad they raised me this way. I'm glad they were disciplinarians. I'm glad they didn't let me get away with doing what you see some kids get away with doing now. But, until you're the one making the calls and being the coach, I mean, it's difficult. So again, just know that they were loved and they were appreciated, and that you got them through the tough times, so that later in life they'd be able to handle it. I think that there's too many people maybe being coddled at times, and certainly too many kids not learning to be respectful. And even if when I was growing up, even if there's an adult who was bonkers, I still had to act like, because he or she was my daughter, that she wasn't bonkers. And and you get home and you can talk about it, but there's a certain pecking order that goes in there, and so I guess I'm a little old school like that. So that just be appreciative, be loved, and have that ability to talk and be connected. And so I'm already nostalgic for the times where they get old enough to where you can be friends, because you can't be that friend now. You got to direct them and lead. But at some point, man, it would be awesome when you get to that next phase and you can be like, oh, you turned out okay. So let's hang out and talk about some stuff now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. Yeah, I think about that stuff too, because you see, like that relationship develops with you and your parents, and then you're thinking like, okay, this will really be cool one day to be able to do that. We did have one question pop up from one of our long time listeners. He said, does Mr. Taylor see Tebow becoming a coach, like a quarterback coach, or part of the university maybe down the road? He's wrapped up in SEC Nation and all things kind of on TV right now, but I'm sure the Florida Nation, the Gator Nation, would open their arms eagerly to having Tebow back involved with the program. What do you think about that?
Yeah, he's such an ambassador, and he's such a sort of an inspirational dude. I feel like coaching, at least on the college level, I'm not sure he would get in line with some of the things I think you have to do. Recruiting, even the good guys out there tell you recruiting is all about lying. You're selling something to the kid. The kid's probably lying back to you about you being his number one school. You won't know till signing day. I'm not sure if he could ever function in that way. He might be too honest for his own good.
Sure.
But I mean, if a guy like that doesn't have a role in sports, then I think we've got a problem, right? So whether it's a mentor, whether it's an analyst that comes in and talks to players, and they see him 300 days out of the year, then there's got to be a spot for him if he wants it. But with his mission work and everything else, man, he's doing so much powerful stuff. When you're going to take that career switch,
Sure. He just needs to show up on Saturdays and say 2 bits, 4 bits, and let the swamp do its thing at that point, and that's all he has to do. He'll be good.
Give that speech from 2008 or whatever it was after the Ole Miss game.
After the Ole Miss game, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you'll never see a player work harder. Yeah, or whatever that was. Yeah.
You tell me what you guys think, because Bama beat them the next year, and it started Saban's run, and some of the guys I'd grown up with who were Bama fans were sort of making fun of Tebow for crying, and I just remember telling them, "You wish you had a guy that had won a national championship or 2 and was still crying after losing his last SEC championship game." I mean, to me, that just cemented how much that guy gave. And then you find out, some of the other characters in that team weren't necessarily good people, and he kept them in line and got them to where they were. Man, I got nothing respect for that amount of caring and want to.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I've always been a big fan of his, and I mean, in many facets of life outside of football, but definitely, I know he, especially this past year, he's gotten a lot of flack over the Jacksonville thing, and maybe deservedly so on his performance on the field, but at the end of the day, he wasn't going to turn down that opportunity to be a part of that.
And Urban just wanted a guy like that in his locker room. That's really what that was. He was trying to find a spot for him on the team.
Yep.
Yeah, and it didn't cost him anything. I mean, he was gone on the first cut down. He didn't take anybody's job
right.
So yeah, heck, after what he did with the Mets in the minor leagues, I thought the guy could do anything. It's crazy not to play since high school and then show up and actually be able to
get to AAA. I think.
Yeah.
You just don't want to ask him to block.
You do not. You do not.
No, I think you're absolutely right there, Matt. So, well, Allan, man, thanks so much for joining us. Just let everybody know really quickly kind of where they can find the stuff that you're doing there with The Athletic.
Yeah, it's at theathletic.com. I think there's a 50% off special lasting through the week. And then on Twitter, it's G. Allan Taylor. So looking forward to enjoying the rest of the season, man. And it's good to talk to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love what you guys do at The Athletic. I mean, that's kind of my go-to publication. Y'all just, I don't know what it is that y'all do differently, but y'all are just professional all across the board. We try to have a lot of guests from The Athletic, and I just really appreciate the work that y'all do. So thank you, and keep it up the good works.
No, I appreciate you saying that. We're really blessed. If the company hadn't been so well run, I'm sure COVID would have caused a lot of layoffs and things like that. But the guys at the top really, they're sports fans who want to read sports, and they noticed that newspapers had 4-page sections instead of 16-page sections on Sunday. And so it got to the point where they said, let's do something about it. So I appreciate your kind words, man.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Allan, again, thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys.
We'll see you in the SEC championship game.
That's right. All right, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we got some more talk here on Dad's Watching Sports. We'll be right back. Big news in the Dad's Watching Sports podcasting world. You've heard us mention it on the show already. We are now part of the Off the Ball Podcast Network. We're super excited to be joining the team of great shows, hopefully adding a little dad flavor to the mix. You can check out Off the Ball Podcast and Off the Ball Network on all your social media sites. Just search Off the Ball Network. And while you're there, give them a like and a follow. You won't regret it. Welcome back to Dad's Watching Sports. Kyle Castles, Michael Draper, Matt Kirk.
You know what? We got to stop. Matt, we got to do this, right?
What?
Matt, do you know what today is?
I heard that there's a little something good going on today, but I didn't know what.
You didn't know what?
There ain't nothing going on today.
I heard,
No, there's something going on today, and this
Yeah.
little fella might know about it.
Look at that guy. No, go back to that
We're
first.
gonna go back to this.
First off, let me start off by saying those all white Nikes, the high tops, were trend setting. Secondly, this is the one and only ever baseball season that young Michael Draper participated in, and yet we were one and done. LaFleur Lanes down in Greenwood, Mississippi. Man, that brings back some.
Hey, and green and yellow, just like Pillow Academy.
No doubt about it.
Did you ever get made fun of for that big L on your forehead?
I did. People continue to go around and do this. I'm like, oh, remember that team you were on? Yeah, it happened a lot.
But then, like, so there's a TikTok trend, and it's like, how did this and this turn into this? Right,
Hey.
and so like, let's just go through this. Like,
hey, look at the comment from the listeners out here. Look at that stud, exactly. Look at that. I mean, that if that doesn't have future soccer pro written all over it, I don't know what does.
I think she might be a little bit biased. That's all. I'm just
She's a little biased. I'm still not entirely sure how you got these photos, Kyle. Yep, there's that. I think that's like maybe 7-year-old Michael playing some soccer there. So yeah.
I appreciate the collar on the shirt.
Oh, of course. You know, we had to keep it classy down there in Greenwood, Mississippi.
So. Very European.
Well, and you had a collar.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
the only collared shirts in Mississippi.
Yeah,
right.
And then, but then, man, the green on blue,
dude. I was fighting the ladies off with sticks. I mean, look at that butt cut part.
You look like the guy that was cast off of LFO right here.
Oh, I was jamming some LFO on the way to the soccer games. You know, getting ready to try to win over the ladies with my play in the beautiful game. Just wondering, like, when's the coach coming to recruit me for that soccer scholarship?
Well,
I was wondering, Michael, did you wear that uniform out to the bar? So they said that lady likes a guy in the uniform. I
did. That was my kind of go-to. I was like, well, hey, I got number 24 right here.
Little known fact, the night he met his wife, he met Suzanne, this is what he was wearing.
It's true. True story.
It wouldn't surprise me.
The shorts were a little shorter than they probably should have been.
It's the only reason she went out with you because of the
exactly.
short.
That's right. She's like, I'll disregard the jersey, but those shorts and those legs, that's something nice.
You know what? Happy birthday, brother. 37 has never looked so good.
I appreciate that. The thing is the unfortunate thing is, look at all that hair. Like, look at those locks. And clearly,
look, I know your father. You know your father. You weren't going to keep hair.
No, I knew it from a very early age that the hair on my head would be bald and the hair on my back would be thick. Just kind of one of those things. Thank you, James. So, and TJ jumps in, happy birthday as well. Well, thank you, TJ. I appreciate that. Despite the fact that these two guys are making fun of me, I appreciate the kind words from TJ.
I do say this, Michael. I'm kind of worried though. Did you have a birthday cake?
So I did not have a birthday cake, but I'm going to give a shout out, and I'm not going to pay him for this, or I'm not going to have him pay me for this, but a good friend of ours that lives here in the neighborhood, he owns, it's called Papa C's Pies in Franklin, Tennessee. If you live in the greater Nashville area and you are a fan of either savory or sweet pies, I highly, highly, highly recommend going to Papa C's Pies. We had a Oreo cream pie. We had a Ghirardelli chocolate pie. And then my wife, because she knows me and loves me so much, got me like a little bitty. He makes like these little tiny ones, and it was a chess pie, which is my favorite kind of pie. So no cakes, but plenty of pie.
Well, so I was kind of worried. Did you put candles in the pie?
She did. So we had our small group over tonight. We hosted our church small group tonight, and unbeknownst to me, my wife also bought candles and put a candle in my little chess pie. And that did not sound right. Put a candle in my little chest pie. And
yes, she did.
yeah, she did. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. But yeah, and had the whole small group sing me happy birthday, which was embarrassing / very sweet. So.
Well, so I'm glad, because if she had put candles in the Oreo pie, there probably wouldn't have been any pie left, because the candles would have taken all the pie filling out.
That's right. Yep. And yep. Mrs. Draper is embarrassed. She put the little embarrassed emoji on. So for those of you that are just listening to the podcast and thinking like, what in the world are they talking about? We will not put out the photos that were released here on this podcast. So you're just going to have to use your best imagination. Just think of the most handsome young man that you possibly could.
Catch us on YouTube. It's out there. You are more than welcome. Find us YouTube. Dad's Watching Sports.
Hey, Kyle, you've known me
on my Instagram.
There you go, Kyle. You've known me for a long time. You knew me for at least one of those pictures. Yes. I mean, the ladies were just chomping at the bit, having to fight them off left and right. I mean, I was a preacher's kid. I had those good looks going. I was a below average soccer player, below average athlete. Below average basketball player,
below average student in math class.
I was a below average student in general. So I had a lot going for me. I mean, basically any female at that point in time could have seen like, this guy's going to be successful. Yep. He's going to make pretty babies. Like, I mean, come on. Like, I mean, it was just fighting them off with a stick.
And it is weird. Like, you actually did make some pretty babies. I give all credit to your wife there.
I give all credit. 100% credit to Mrs. Draper. So, but yes, it's my birthday, and I thought this would be a good time to just kind of quickly talk just birthdays in general. I mean, we all have them. We all have them every single year, and just like I want to hear from you guys. Like, what's the expectation for you as a dad on birthdays? Like, what is it? Is it a like mom takes everything over for the kids? I just get to chill, sit back, and relax. Like, what is that day expectation like for you, Kyle? And then we'll come to you next, Matt, on your birthday from a dad perspective.
I just want something made by the kids. That's all I care about. Like, I don't need a whole lot of stuff. I don't want her to just say, you go sit down. I don't need, just give me something made by the kids, and I'm happy. And that's all I really care about. What do you think, Matt?
Man, I'm kind of selfish, I guess. I probably shouldn't have gone after Kyle. I probably should have gone first. But man, I love my wife to make me food. So like this last year, she made me. What did she make me this last year? Oh, we had chicken fried steak on my birthday this past year, and let me tell you, that was some good eating right there. And then she always likes to make me a cake too, so that's always cool. But I compromised because I got the chicken fried steak. I had cookie cake, so
it's not a bad deal.
That's not a bad deal. Well, I Mrs. Draper, I guess her kind of a meal birthday type present for me today was, she was like, hey, I know there's a certain place you like to go that the kids will eat there sometimes, and they're somewhat happy about it. She's not so much. So pre-church this morning, we went to Waffle House. So that was my kind of birthday meal. Yeah. Oh, and it was good too. It was very good. Easy. I don't know what was that in reference to what I said, but
I think it was.
There you go. I think it was too. All right. So Nick Hathcock says he has a special meal, which includes meatloaf, mashed potatoes, cornbread, fried okra, sweet tea, and peas. Well, that sounds
like a bad meal.
That's not a bad meal. I would love to cook my bride meatloaf because she hates meatloaf.
Easy.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, kind of the same thing. Like, I had a couple of friends text me today, like, "Hey, what are you doing for your birthday?" And I was like, I think I'm going to mow the yard. And it was a great day. Like, they treated me very well. Don't get me wrong. It was a really great weekend. But I think once you get to a certain age, it's kind of like, it's just kind of it's more about spending time with the family and just having fun than it really is about getting things and having specific expectations met or anything like that. So, what about kids? Like, so Kyle, you and your 3 kids came to Emma's birthday party yesterday. So our daughter's birthday was on Tuesday. So we had a party yesterday. And you have to kind of dance this fine line of you want your kids to feel special on their birthday and you want them to get the things that they want, but you have to dance this fine line of like when the expectation becomes all about the gifts and the presents and everything is about me and it's all about what I want to do. Kyle, I'm interested, you got 3 now. How do you guys manage we want this to be about you, but we don't want you to get a big head and feel like everything has to be about you type of thing?
Look, my wife.
Yeah.
The way the kids talk today, she would be considered extra. And so you've been to the birthday parties.
You guys had a carnival.
We had a carnival.
Yeah. It was awesome too, by the way.
It was a Toy Story 4 party, and
Yep.
those the dads who are out there that have watched Toy Story 4, everyone knows that Toy Story 4 takes place at a carnival for the most part. So we had a freaking carnival with games, a bounce house, and all that good stuff. So we don't really try to balance with it. It's your day. So on party day, it is exactly what you want. It's as big as we can make it. And that causes a fairly stressful week in the lead up with all the prep that has to be done. But it's one of those things where like it's one day for the kids each year that's solely about them.
Yep.
It's not about their brothers. They don't have to compromise. It's what do you want? And that's what we do. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but that's what we do.
Matt, what about you guys?
Man, so when Campbell turned 1, it was just the start of the pandemic. So we did a birthday party through Zoom. Then this past year, we kind of fooled around and we ended up having us another baby around the same time. So we spent I took off for work on Campbell's birthday and we got her Daniel Tiger donuts. And for lunch, we had pasta, which is by far her favorite meal. And then for dinner, we had, what did we have for dinner that night? We had something else that Campbell likes. I don't remember. But anyway, so pretty much what I'm getting at here is we just kind of like them to be able to pick everything that they want all day, and just let them know that their day is their day. And, they get to pick everything. And then 2 days later, we had Henry. So there we go.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do that stuff too. I mean, don't get me wrong. We definitely try to make sure the days are all about that individual. I think for Emma, so she turned 5, and so she's definitely that age where she understands everything that it's about her, and she wakes up in the morning that morning on Tuesday, and she's like, "Where are my presents?" And we're like, "Hey, like, how about just like, oh, thank you for decorating the house," or like just don't go straight to the presents type of thing. So it's just a delicate balance of trying to keep them a little grounded while also trying to celebrate them as much as we possibly can. So Eric Jackson, happy birthday, brother. Thank you, sir. Look forward to getting some miles in with you around the neighborhood, Eric. Once the weather cools down, we need to get some running in, man. So hit me up. Bo Myers says, of course, Castles is wearing a Saints hat. And he only picks a winner. Only picks a winning team.
Whoa,
get a rebuttal there.
Mike, you have known me long enough to know I have been a Saints fan forever. I remember when a 6-10, a 7-9 season was considered a decent season for the Saints. So I don't pick a winner. I can't help but be a fan of a winner now because all they do is win.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, speaking of all you do is win, we're going to have some picks of winning teams coming up after the break. We'll come right back on Dad's Watching Sports. Coming up next week on Dad's Watching Sports, it is episode 82 of Dad's Watching Sports podcast, and we are going to be talking all things Notre Dame at Wisconsin, also the Sweet 16 of our best tailgate foods bracket. That and more next week. We'll see you then on Dad's Watching Sports. Welcome back. Kyle Castles, Matt Kirk, Michael Draper, Jason Hitchings jumps in, says Cubs ain't winning, and that's the truth. So, Kyle, you do have a team that you support that definitely doesn't do any winning at all. That is for darn sure. All right, guys, before we get out of here, let's talk a little more college football. There were some big weekend upsets this past weekend. You really look across the top 25 and even a little bit outside of it, and there were some pretty shocking results, whether it be the amount of a team won or a team upsetting a top 25 team. So, Matt, I'll go to you first. What was your kind of biggest upset? I mean, we know Arkansas winning was, and whether that's an upset in your mind or not, but Arkansas winning was probably your favorite. But what do you feel like was maybe the biggest upset of this past weekend?
Man, honestly, the Arkansas-Texas was up there just because Arkansas had been so bad for so long.
Sure.
And this Sam Pittman came in and just turned it around. But that's not my answer, as the popular opinion would believe. I think that Oregon beating Ohio State was a statement from Oregon, and I think that they are going to be for real this year because they were even without their two best players. And I think that they are going to really go on a big run here because the Pac-12 is weak.
Kyle, what about you? What was the biggest upset of the past weekend for you? You talked about it, I think, a couple of times this past week. You felt like the Pac-12 was maybe a little bit better than people were giving credit for. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the Pac-12 actually showed up. You got UCLA beating LSU last week. You got Oregon beating Ohio State this week. I think Colorado played A&M within 7, right? 10-3, I think was the final. There's teams in the Pac-12. And so I'm not putting the Pac-12 to bed at all. I think right now the Big Ten is the conference out of the playoff at this point. But my upset, and I am going to completely be a homer here, and I don't really care, and nobody's going to care about this upset except me. Depending on which sports book you were looking at, Mississippi State was a 2 or 2.5 point underdog to the North Carolina State Wolfpack, and sure enough, we beat them by 14 in Starkville. Hell State.
Don't turn your back on the Wolfpack, or you might wind up in a body bag. Mississippi State said, "We don't care. We're not down with the Wolfpack," and knocked them off. So mine, I was kind of going back and forth on a couple of games. I mean, Matt, I completely agree with you. I think Arkansas, while I thought it would be a close game, I thought Texas would probably win that game. But for me, the big upset of the weekend, and one that I think has not gotten really a whole lot of attention or talked about, and the implications, Kyle, you mentioned that the Big Ten may be out of the playoff. Well, not so fast, my friend, in the words of Lee Corso, because the Hawkeyes went into Ames and just bullied Iowa State. They had Ashton Kutcher on game day wearing his Iowa shirt. He was getting the Hawkeye fans fired up. And man, Iowa's a good football team. Like, they're just solid across the board. They've got a pretty decent quarterback. They run the ball really well. Their defense is stingy. Watch out for the Hawkeyes to make a potential run at the playoff. But that was my biggest upset of the weekend, which I also picked last week. Not to throw that in y'all's face, but guys, speaking of picks, we've got 4 picks this week. So if we're looking at our overall standings for our picks, let's see.
We don't have to look at them.
Well, I think we'll take a look, Kyle. So as we're looking at our overall standings here, wait, hold on, I uploaded the wrong thing. Let me pick up a different thing here. Here we are. So here is our official standings after 2 weeks. So in first place is Woo Pig Suey, 7-3 with a 7-3 record. Matt Kirk's in first, I with 5-5, and Kyle is in lowly last at 4-6. But that's okay because Kyle played college football, so he knows everything about football, including how to pick a winner. So guys, let's go to our picks this week. So a big game out of conference. And I'll be honest, I didn't even realize that this game was on the schedule this week. Auburn goes to Happy Valley to take on Penn State. Auburn scored over 60 points in both games so far this season, and they haven't played anybody, but they scored 60 points in each game. Penn State went into Madison and knocked off the Badgers in week 1. So you got Auburn at Penn State. Matt, you going the Tigers, or is James Franklin going to have Happy Valley rocking to where they're going to knock off Auburn?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Happy Valley is going to be rocking, but Auburn is going to be the one coming and knocking. I know that I trash talked Bo Nix a couple weeks ago. I'm wrong. Brian Harsin has them playing extremely well. Bo Nix is confident again. And it just kind of shows testament to how awful Chad Morris is as a coach. But anyway, I'm going Auburn.
Kyle, what about you? Penn State or Auburn?
I'm actually going to go Penn State here. I know I'm an SEC guy, and I should probably pick the SEC team, but I don't think Auburn's played anybody, and so I think anybody can look good when you're playing lowly teams, but this is the first real test for Auburn. I don't think they pass it. I'll go Penn State.
I think I'm going to go Penn State as well. I think that, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Auburn's looked really good the first couple of weeks, but they hadn't played anybody. I mean, like I said, they scored over 60 points, but who couldn't have gotten a pretty high scoring margin in those games that they played? I think you go into Happy Valley, and I'm trying to pull up, if you bear with me just a second, I'm trying to pull up when this game is, because I think it's a night game.
It's week 3, Michael.
Well, I know it's week 3, but I'm talking about what time it is. It's at 6:30. Yeah, so it's a night game in Happy Valley. I'll take the Nittany Lions to win that one. Next game up is, it could be an interesting trap game. Cincinnati plays at Notre Dame the week after this. But this week they have to go to Bloomington to play Indiana. Can Cincinnati keep the things rolling? I'll go first, and I will say they will, as they'll knock off the Hoosiers. Indiana just not the team they were last year. Kyle, what do you got, Indiana or Cincinnati?
Yeah, I got to go with Cincinnati. I think that they have one of the better coaches in the nation. I don't know how much longer they'll keep him. They got one of the better quarterbacks in the nation. And with those two, you're going to win a lot of football games, and this is one that Cincinnati will win.
Matt, Indiana or Cincinnati?
I'm going to go with the Hoosiers. The Hoosiers, they really know how to bring an upset. I think they are going to be an upset city in Bloomington.
All right, we'll save our Super Bowl picks for the end since it's week 1 of the NFL. But we talked with Allan Taylor from The Athletic about Bama at Florida. That's a big game coming up. What are we thinking here, guys? Matt, we'll go to you first. You got the Tide or you got the Gators?
Man, I think the Florida 2 quarterback system is going. There are a lot of people that say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have 1 quarterback. I think that Florida, they have the right formula, and I think that they're going to catch Alabama, and I think they're going to beat them. I think it's going to be close. I think they're going to win by a field goal.
Kyle?
Well, you want to talk about the 2 quarterback system. Dan Mullen's done it multiple times. Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. Help me out, Mike. It was at Mississippi State. It was the kid out of Meridian, Tyler Russell, and
if you wouldn't ask me,
who was the runner?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So Dan Mullen can run a 2 quarterback system. I don't question that at all. The only thing I don't question is Nick Saban, and I don't see any chance that Florida beats Alabama. 2 coaches I never pick against are Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, and so give me Alabama.
Yeah, I'm torn here. I do think that it's going to be a hostile environment. The swamp is going to be packed. It's going to be loud. It's going to be rocking like it was, 06, 07, 08, and then back in the mid-90s. So it'll be interesting to see how does Bryce Young handle that, and how does a young Alabama team, or maybe not young, but a fairly inexperienced Alabama team handle that. But Kyle, I think you hit the nail on the head. They handle it because they have the most preparer of all preparers of all time, and Nick Saban. And so I agree. I think Bama. I think it's close. I'll say Bama wins maybe by a touchdown, but I think they find a way to continue the streak and move on. As well. So a couple of picks here. So TJ says Penn State. Nick's got Cincinnati to win. TJ also going with Cincinnati, and then TJ says I got Bama by 2 scores in that game. So, all right, guys, we're NFL season kicked off today. The Titans stunk as usual, like they normally do. They on games that they should probably win, they just pooped the bed, which was fun to watch today. But it's Super Bowl pick time as we are looking forward to next year's Super Bowl. Kyle, I'm gonna let you go first. Who you got in Super Bowl? What is it? 56?
Sure, we'll go 56.
I thought it was number 69.
Maybe.
So who do I got? Okay, I said I never pick against Bill Belichick. It's not gonna be the Patriots. Not with their rookie quarterback. If you, I don't know if y'all watched that Thursday game with the Buccaneers and the Cowboys, but the Buccaneers look like, I mean, they left off offensively right where they with winning the Super Bowl. I mean, they're playing at that level already. So where they get to by the end of the year is kind of scary looking. If injuries don't get to them, they have a big injury. Sean Murphy Bunting is out with what looks like a broke arm. I hadn't seen an update, but just watching it live, his arm broke. If injuries don't happen, I like the Buccaneers out of the NFC. The AFC, I'll be honest, if you had asked me before the games were played today, I would have probably told you the Buffalo Bills. But them getting beaten by the Steelers, and it wasn't a pretty game. Steelers had to come back and score 17 in the final quarter to win, but it's games like that tend to, you don't want to say it turns the season around in week one, but it kind of sets a tone that, I don't know. I think there's something with this Steelers team. As long as everyone stays healthy. So Steelers Bucks in the Super Bowl.
Steelers and Bucks. All right. I am going to, even though they did lose today, I am going to go with the Bills out of the AFC. I think they've been kind of knocking at the door. I think last year made the AFC Championship game. I think this is the year they finally get over. And then I've got to go with the Rams of the NFC. Kyle, we kind of talked about it before the show. Matthew Stafford really stepping in and looks like kind of what we expect out of Matthew Stafford, and I think he's going to be able to put them over the top. So I'm going Bills Rams in the Super Bowl. Matt, what about you? What's your pick?
I am going to go with the Kansas. Well, actually, no, I'm not even going to go with them. I am going to go with Cleveland and the San Francisco 49ers.
All right. So we got Browns, the 49ers. So Kyle got Bucks and Steelers. I went Bills and Rams. Matt, Browns and 49ers. We'll see. I'm sure none of us will end up being right, but we'll see how that all plays out.
Well, it's interesting to me that none of us put the Chiefs in there.
Yeah.
And, I mean, watching them, they played a really good Cleveland team today and rallied to win that one. I don't know why, but it doesn't feel like this Chiefs team is what they were 2 years ago when they won the Super Bowl. Does everybody agree?
Yeah. And I don't know why either, but I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Hence my pick. But
yeah, hence all of our picks.
That's right. All right, guys. Well, we got to get out of here. We are up against time, but thanks again for a great week. Thanks to Allan Taylor from The Athletic. Again, if you've never been on The Athletic and checked out what they do, there is a subscription fee, but they've got tremendous content on that website, so definitely check it out. We are highlighting the Irish at Wisconsin next week. So Notre Dame at Wisconsin. We'll have a guest with us to talk all about Notre Dame and about that matchup. So we will see you next week to talk that and much more on Dad's Watching Sports. Y'all take care.